It's always such a gradual rollout when you go live on Facebook, and it's really anticlimactic. But welcome to the Trump Report, everyone. it's great to it's
Yay.
great to see everyone.
Dun,
Some
dun,
of
dun,
you
dun, 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 dun,
some of
dun.
you
You
will
all
be
ready for
watching
this?
this live on Facebook, and then others of you will be watching it not live on YouTube because I think I would need to buy a higher tier subscription to Zoom to be able to stream two places at once. And I already have qualms about paying anything for something that everybody else uses for free. I kind of feel like a sucker, but here we are for a fun-filled morning/afternoon of Trump Report talk. After the night after the big events, plural, the two town hall debates, not debates, town hall meetings, because we didn't get the debate. And on our last show, we said, well, maybe we'll be on after the debate. But I think even last week we were like, yeah, I don't know about that. I don't think any of us were really convinced that that was going to happen. So I mean, I guess there's a lot to focus on in terms of what's happened in the last week. There was the there was the fact that Trump was cured and he's immune from I think not just coronavirus but all viruses. So we'll talk about
Right.
that. But I'm being rude without introducing our esteemed panel. I, as always, am Christian Blatt, joined by Tamra Brown
Hey there.
and Scott Moore, Showgirls aficionado.
Hey, guys.
Scott Moore. And by the way, Scott, you have a nice smile. You look really handsome when you smile. So.
Yes, good one from the nice callback for
that.
From
yeah,
what? I don't.
That was well.
What are you referencing?
You should have watched the town hall, Tamra. No, there was this lady who says she's not a Trump fan, but she was definitely flirting with the president. And she said that seeing you in person, you have a really nice smile. You should smile more often. And let's be honest, he appreciated that, because he's like, hey, look, even if
he smiled.
Yeah, even if it's true, he did smile. So yeah, there's a couple of those moments that we can talk about.
Also, she was wearing glasses that I was like, maybe she needs a new prescription because she had these big glasses on.
Scott, that's mean. So we didn't get the debate that we thought we would, but again, we were pretty sure that the interesting thing was, and I think this was the picture on the Drudge Report for like 3 days. Reportedly, President Trump and his big, staged return to the White House, he wanted to tear open his shirt and have a Superman shirt underneath it. He really liked that idea, as evidenced by the fact that he has referred to himself as Superman a few times. And it hasn't been disputed. So somebody did a Photoshop mock-up of him basically, showing off the Superman shirt. And I don't know. I think at least that proves that at least once somebody can give him semi-decent campaign advice that they said, you can't do that. You just like it.
Because the S would be all stretched and distorted.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's just, I don't know. It's just like, I don't think he gets it. That's just like corny and it's lame. and you don't even have to deal with the facts behind it. You're just like, oh, it's so stupid. But then the federal, what is that? The debate commission. They said that we'll still do it, but it has to be viral. It has to be digital. It has to be, Zoom basically. And I said that they should have just made the president wear a mask. I still stand by that. I said that on our last show. Why don't you just tell him to wear a mask and then everything will be fine. And he didn't want to do it. And I mean, I can kind of understand that. I can also understand them saying that he had to do it. But now it just looks stupid when the day comes and he's, they're both doing town halls on competing networks at the same time. So I don't know, Scott, I'll ask you first. What are your thoughts on sort of the way the whole thing played out, that the debate didn't happen? And do you think that they should have insisted on the, on a remote format? I mean, it seems like they could have possibly jumped the gun a little bit, You know, they could have like prepared for it as an eventuality, but they were pretty much right away. It's like, yeah, we have to move it. We have to have a different kind of debate. What do you think about all that?
No, I think they totally could have done it as like what we talked about before, like Nixon and Kennedy did that in 1960. And if they can do that 60 years ago, we have the technology to be able to do something similar like that today. But again, the problem was that Trump declined. And I actually thought it was good that Biden said, no, I'm not changing the dates again. Like, I'll still do the third debate on the 22nd, but we're not going to now switch the dates and do the last one on the 29th. If you're declining to do it in this format, then that's it. What I didn't expect to happen was that now Trump was going to have a dueling town hall at the same exact time, which I just don't think that was the best move on NBC's part. They could have done a little bit better strategy with that, because I think that sort of defeated the purpose, because, you know, I think Trump couldn't stand the fact that Biden was now going to have all of this airtime unopposed. And so, of course, he wanted to come in and have something at the same time to hopefully get the bigger ratings, because that's all he cares about. But I think it was very poor on NBC's part to do that. They could have even done it on another night, like done it, you know, Wednesday night instead or whatever. But to do how they did that, I think ended up being a disservice to most people, because if you can't record it, you're not able to see both of them at the same time. So it makes it harder for people to be able to get a clear idea of how the candidates would have spoken on certain topics. So it could have easily been done, and it's kind of silly that it didn't after all that, and they ended up having competing town halls. But the format that they're going to be in will be, I think, much better anyways. You know, the third one next week is going to be in the same style as the first one we had. So we'll see how Trump is going to hopefully maybe change some of his tactics, and we'll see how that plays out for him next week, as opposed to a town hall, which is a little bit different setup. So yeah, it would have been better for them to just do it, but here we are.
Yeah, I mean, I think if they were going to be two, they didn't have to be the same night, but reportedly he wanted the same night, he wanted the same time, and
Of course.
I don't know. I mean, I think at some point, you know, I mean, that you could have at least scheduled it in some way where it didn't compete directly against it. But of course, Tamra, the interesting thing is that, you know, Sleepy Joe, who you worry about, you know, running out of gas right away, he not only did a half an hour longer for his town hall, you could see after it was over, he was taking the rest of the questions and talking to everybody else there. He like put on his mask and he got closer to the audience. So I'm going to say that he at least did 2 hours, you know, and legitimately when he was talking to some of the voters, and he every time it was like, it was polite and endearing in a way, but it was like, every time he was like, I hope I answered your question. Did that answer your question? And there was one guy that you could tell he didn't. He's like, well, come talk to me afterwards. And it's a little thing that you see that and you go like, all right, I feel like, you know, I mean, if President Trump was going to tell anybody to come talk to him afterwards, it would have been the woman who said he has a nice smile, or the woman seated over his shoulder who kept nodding at like everything he said,
Yes.
who it turns out is a pro-Trump Republican who ran for congressional office, I think last year, or maybe it was, you know, I think it was 2 years ago.
Yeah, 2018. Yeah.
Yeah. So Tamra, now you didn't watch either of them, so I'm actually very jealous of you. You didn't think that there was any chance that you might have decided to change the way you were voting.
You know, it's anybody's. It's
Right?
anybody's game in my mind. I'm still just trying to weigh which old man I think can better lead this country.
You know what? I don't think
divide.
I don't think Kanye is that old. I don't know why you would refer to him as an old man, because obviously that's the.
By the way, he's
go ahead.
on my ballot. I believe it says he's the vice presidential candidate.
Because
What?
he wasn't able to. My wife
Yeah.
explained this to me. He wasn't able to get enough signatures in time or whatever, so he has to be the vice presidential candidate. And I think the guy that's a presidential candidate didn't want him as the vice presidential candidate.
So weird. So
yeah,
weird.
but,
Okay, well, first of all, I feel like people's expectation that Biden is like, I feel like people watch him and they're just like, oh, when's he gonna, he's gonna mess up now. And I feel like that anticipation far outweighs his actual effing up, his actual in like unprofessionalism or whatever you want to call it. Like I feel like everybody's anxiety that that's going to happen just far outweighs the reality of his gaffes. But I wonder, when it comes to trying to get Trump, like in order to get him to do a digital format, I would think that there's somebody on his staff who knows how to phrase things to appeal to his ego so that he would agree to it. So I'm thinking, like, I would say to him, well, the way that we're able to gauge ratings on television is only so limited. But if we did a digital debate, not only would we be able to tell how more accurately how many more people are watching, but we'd also be able to tell, I don't know, like, you know what I mean? Just trying to, he doesn't know the difference, so you can say anything that you want to him in
Sure.
order to get him to do what you want him to do. And I think, like, in the early days of his presidency, Xi Jinping actually used that to their advantage, I think, with the rolling out the red carpets for him and stuff. But I don't know, it seems like his staff doesn't seem to handle
Well,
him
I don't,
like
I
that.
don't, I don't know that necessarily anyone on his staff would have thought it was a good idea to do that. You know what I mean? I think that
Yeah.
legitimately, regardless of how you personally feel about it, there, it's, if you think of the way the first debate was, you can very easily just minimize his little Zoom window. You can click on his microphone so that you can't hear him anymore. I mean, there's too many things that you can do in that respect, So, and I think that
I mean, you
they,
don't think his staff would think that it would be better to have him in an environment where he wouldn't be able to, screw up and make an ass of himself as much as he could on live TV?
no, I don't think they see it that way. I think that they were going for what Scott referenced was that you would have had the second debate next Thursday, and then the third one would move to the 29th. And, the Biden campaign's under no obligation to agree to that. There's no reason that you would have to do that. So I think, it's, and I think that they both took advantage of the opportunity, and I think that there were a lot of people that were upset about it. I didn't quite understand, Scott. There were a lot of people who work for NBC that did this letter. Were they upset that they scheduled it at the same time, or they were upset that they were giving Trump a forum at all? Because I feel like you can obviously not like him and you can have problems with his policies, but it's like it's the president and it's the other candidate. If your network is a place he's looking to go, you should, not necessarily go against the other network. But I don't know. What was your understanding of why people were so upset? I think it was more than 100 like NBC stars and creators
Yeah,
that signed this letter. Yeah.
yeah. I think it was basically we talked about earlier. It was because it was at the same time. Like obviously we get it, but it's like now you're giving free airtime to him, and you're splitting up the opportunity for voters to be able to have an opportunity to see both. Where that's the biggest issue. It's like Trump had already basically turned down doing the debate, so Biden went ahead with the town hall and had already planned on that. And now it's like now Trump decided to come in and was like, well, I can't stand him having this time to himself. So now I'm going to do it at the same time and then hopefully get the bigger ratings. And as I was saying to somebody last night, the difference with ABC and NBC also is that NBC has all these affiliates like MSNBC, CNBC, Telemundo that can also show this debate going on at the same time, which of course they did. And then you have ABC that doesn't have that same kind of bandwidth. So you're already giving an extra advantage to Trump by doing that. So I think that's why a lot of people are upset. It's like, look, like we talked about, you could have done it on Wednesday night, you could have done it another night, but the fact that you went up and directly went against Biden at the same time that was already planned after he turned it down, that was what really just upset a lot of people, which is understandable.
Yeah. The interesting thing, I guess, is that yeah, you are able to see it a lot of different times. And there was, you and I we had a text exchange. Well, we all had an exchange beforehand, and originally you were not planning on watching it because you didn't want to, give NBC
Right.
the ratings. And I ended up recording it. I have YouTube TV, so I ended up watching it from something that I didn't even know I had called NBC News Now, which is not MSNBC, not CNBC, but it's just some kind of weird, really low budget news source, and they just ran it on that. So that's what I watched it on, because I don't know. That's just, I didn't even realize what I was watching it on. And I think that if ABC really wanted to, it's not like they couldn't have put it on ESPN or the Disney Channel
Yeah,
or
right.
Freeform. They have a lot of channels.
Right.
It's just they wouldn't really
They
fit
do,
into
but
the programming. Yeah.
Disney Plus.
Exactly.
Should we watch Mulan or Biden?
Yeah. Well, Mulan costs $30 on Disney Plus. Biden, you could have watched for free. So,
Right.
but yeah, well, so I guess there was controversy before they even started. And I think that, I think it's easier and quicker to talk about the Biden town hall first. So let's start with that. Tamra, have you read about it, seen any clips, or are you just really gearing up for your shot by shot remake of Showgirls that we were talking about before the show started?
I mean, always.
Yeah, of course.
No, I paid more attention to the Trump one.
There's a lot
So
of news that came out of that one for sure.
yeah. Who did who, I don't even know who like moderated the town hall for Biden.
Chris Berman from ESPN. So that made for really interesting. No, it was George Stephanopoulos. Yeah. So it makes sense. George is kind of there. I mean, he does the Sunday show this week. He's on Good Morning America. He's kind of like, if you're going to have just one person, he's I think somebody who makes sense. And go ahead, Tamra.
I'm in the recaps, I see like a couple times that for Trump, Savannah Guthrie interjected and said like, well, actually that's not true. Did Stephanopoulos do that at any point?
Well, I don't remember him doing that. I don't know if you do, Scott. The times that President Trump needed to be corrected were things that were patently false. Something that earlier in the day I had seen Jake Tapper was very upset on CNN about the way that he was characterizing this study that said 85% of people who wear masks still get coronavirus. Mm-hmm. And it's not what the study said, apparently. So Savannah Guthrie tried to correct him once. And then when he brought it up again, she actually, because when she kind of let it go the first time, I'm like, oh, I know she's busy, but you would have thought that she would have spent time on it. So then when it came up again, she actually took the time. And, the way to diffuse that, if you're President Trump, is just, I'm just saying what I heard. That's what I heard. That's what I heard, So, but I don't remember Biden getting corrected. I also don't remember, he wasn't bailed out in any way, when he was like searching for, look, there were a couple times where he was looking for a word. It wasn't like, the clip that everybody was so focused on over the last week that he couldn't remember Mitt Romney's name. So it wasn't anything on that level. Anything he was trying to remember, he did remember. It just took him a second. And What is he, 78? And I'm 40, in a couple weeks. I'm 44 and it happens all the time. And I usually don't come up with the thing I'm trying to remember. The thing I'm trying to remember, I usually have to look up. And it's like,
I do this.
It's like, oh God, what was her name? She was Jessie on Saved by the Bell. Oh, Elizabeth Berkley was in Showgirls. So you see,
are we naming this episode the Showgirls? This is
Showgirls
theme.
It was Showgirl night in Miami last night. I did notice that the majority of the people asking questions, and certainly the first batch, they were all women, which I think was clearly by choice. It just at some point I'm like, what? So no guys had questions, and then there was like one guy. Oh, he's stuck in traffic. So they showed a picture.
Yes,
and I'm like,
that was so funny.
I'm like, that's the first thing where I'm like, wait, is this real? Like somebody like, did Chuck Todd slip her a question and be like, yeah, just say the guy who asked it is in traffic. Okay, I'll give you a picture of my uncle. So I don't know. I mean, I thought some of it was weird. I do think that in both cases, I think that the questions were good. I think that it's weird because the people in Pennsylvania seemed way more nervous, like they were like worried and about getting the words right. And maybe it's just because in Miami, everybody's, ready, they're camera ready at all times. So they had learned their lines and, the lighting was perfect. But yeah,
Right.
I don't know. As for the Biden one, I would say that the standout was he said like, well, let's see how the confirmation hearings go for Amy Coney Barrett. Then we'll see if we're gonna pack the courts, or, which the euphemism they like to use is extending the Supreme Court, but honestly, you can call it either thing. You're talking about the same thing. And I think that it's a step in a direction, because before he's like, yeah, no, you don't really need to know. And I thought there were a lot of better ways to handle it than saying you don't need to know.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's like, well, if she doesn't get confirmed, then he feels like, well, no, I don't think we should do that. Then if she does, it's like, well, obviously now I feel like we have to, what did you think about his answer on that, and just in general, your general thoughts on the Biden town hall, Scott?
Well, I think he did exactly what he's needed to do this entire campaign, and that's just keeping the steady, keeping that bar, like we were talking about earlier about, oh, he's Sleepy Joe and he gaffes all the time and he messes up things and he stutters. And the thing is, he did exactly what he needed to do. And that was, he answered the questions, he came with facts, he came with figures. I think some of his responses were almost too long-winded. At times, like going back to that young man who was undecided, and he just kept going on and on and on. And then the guy, like we were talking about earlier, just didn't really seem like he got the answer he was looking for. And I was thinking, like, not only was he going on and on, but he was talking about things that I just don't think that related to that young man. It just did not click with him. It was just more of the politician speak about mortgages and all these other things about helping people get ahead, which is great for the general voter out there. But I think for that particular person, it didn't really resonate. But I did like the fact that he did give very detailed responses. He had the facts and figures to back it up. He seemed very empathetic. He seemed caring. And then he stayed afterwards and mingled with some of the voters and let them ask some follow-up questions that weren't, being recorded. So for me, that looked good as somebody who not only cares and looked like a real leader there, but he did exactly what he needed to do, which was not have any big mistakes, come across smoothly. And I think, again, and we'll get into Trump's too, there were a few questions asked, like the Supreme Court thing in the Biden case, which I do believe was good to give a better answer. Still kind of keeping it like, oh, we'll see kind of thing, but at least saying you'll have an answer before Election Day on how I feel about this, depending on what they do. Meaning, like, if the Republicans do something like confirm her, then yeah, I would be open to something like expanding the court. And a lot of people are agreeing with that mentality, because a lot of voters don't like the fact that they're trying to ram through a Supreme Court justice so quickly. So it's a risky strategy, but I think it's a good one. So I'm glad he did actually say that. And on the Trump side, we'll get into that. There were a few things that he said that Savannah pushed him on that were good to finally get an answer from him that we really haven't seen either. But overall, I think Biden did a really good job. He did exactly what he needed to do, sort of like going back to the first debate, just not making any major mistakes, showing himself as a true leader, empathetic, having those facts and figures, and trying to connect with the voters. So what he needed to do, he did successfully last night.
Yeah, I think that there was plenty of sort of the politics speak that you're talking about, where you just use a lot of words. But there seemed to be at least more instances of having the questions answered that the people were asking. The Trump town hall, it was a lot of sort of that, like, the more like double speak, almost like carnival barker stuff, where you say a lot of things. You say that things are tremendous and that things are fabulous, but you don't actually answer what the question was. You just sort of like, I've said enough words, right? So yeah, I don't know. I think that at least the attempt was made, and yeah, the answers were fairly long-winded. Maybe it's because they had the extra half hour to work with, that they definitely let that go on a little bit. But I don't know. I wonder what the impact is. I haven't seen any overnight ratings for these shows. I'm just going to assume more people have seen the Trump one because it was on so many channels. And honestly,
no, actually, Biden had the numbers. I don't know if they were just comparing to NBC proper, but Biden actually had higher numbers than Trump did. 12 million.
I was going to say,
like 10 million.
Yeah, because there would be 10 tweets about it if
right.
Trump had the better ratings.
Well, if you notice too, he did not basically tweet about anything about his performance last night or anything. He just talked about, again, Biden's performance being horrible, but he didn't say anything about how great his was.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is telling.
There were comments ahead of time that he was in for a setup, for from Savannah Guthrie, which it's interesting because it's not. I'm not trying to demean her background, but I mean she's the host of the Today Show. She's not the one that you think of as like, oh, she's the one that's going to pounce on you. It's like Chuck Todd, you kind of come to expect it, although apparently people hate the questions that Chuck Todd asks if you look at Twitter after a Sunday Meet the Press. Tamra, what are you seeing about it and the feeling you get if you scroll through Twitter? I know you follow a lot of QAnon accounts, so what are your friends there saying?
Well, that was one of the questions that I think Savannah Guthrie did a good job of giving like a follow-up question to Trump when she was asking about QAnon, and he said it was another one of those answers where he was like, this is what that's what I heard. He wouldn't denounce them. Yeah, I see. I don't know. To me, from the recaps, it seems like she did a good job. I guess I felt like we've been saying about the last, like we said about the last debate and the VP debate, is that, or what I've said is that they're saying what you're expecting them to say, so it's not really moving the needle. So I guess it's for that reason that I also felt like with the town hall, like, it's kind of the same thing. Like, what is really going to be suddenly revealed that we weren't aware of before, other than, maybe just some personality likability that maybe if you weren't already, if you weren't already in Biden's camp, maybe if he showed some folksiness that you liked, maybe you would be more on his side or something like that. But and I think town hall or debate, they're pretty obsolete because we're not really going to get to what we need to hear if somebody was actually going to make an informed decision.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, they made a point of highlighting in both of these town halls when there were undecided voters. And I think that, the easy question to ask is how could you possibly be undecided? But I think that there are people like, there was a young African-American voter in the Biden one, and he said he was undecided because I think he probably feels pressure from in his community that's like, well, the Biden's the one you need to vote for, and maybe he just doesn't see why, So I think I can get that people, some people are being really steered in a direction because maybe it's like everyone in your family is voting for Trump, and maybe you don't get it, and you're like, I don't know if I want to actually do that, so you might be undecided as to why is everybody telling me this is the way to do it, So I think that it has to be so much smaller than in other elections, including 2016. But I think that legitimately there are people that don't know that they really want to vote the way that they're at least feeling they're supposed to. What were you going to say, Tamra?
Well, on the last week's VP debate, they seem to, the undecided voters that they spoke with before it started seemed to not be very well informed, it seemed to me. But I wish that they would really talk to those people after the debate, because beforehand, what are they really going to say?
Yeah, I mean, that's what that guy Frank Luntz for Fox News usually does. He usually tries to get some undecideds in there, and he asks them, how did they feel during the debate? So there are people who do that. I mean, you're right. I think it would be helpful to see more of that. But yeah, it's like, okay, so what did you think of the answer you got? Are you any? And I feel like most likely you're like, I'm pretty much still just as undecided as I was, but I think if anything, most people are looking to be reassured that the way they're already expecting to vote is what they are going to do.
Does any of us know anyone personally that is undecided?
Undecided, no. I definitely know people in different parts of the country who are definitely going to vote for Trump. I know quite a few, actually, Yeah,
I do too. I although I wouldn't say they're undecided, but I think my dad's actually struggling with how he wants to vote because he's retiring, and so I I think he's being a one-issue voter right now. So I could
Did
say
he
maybe
vote
he's undecided.
Trump in 2016?
He did not, but and he is Republican, but I think he is undecided and he is struggling on, not that he likes Trump by any stretch, but I think like a lot of people, and especially some people that become one issue voters that are close to retirement or whatever, are thinking, oh, and just have the false thought that Trump or Republicans are pro stock market and Democrats are pro raising taxes and regulation. So, it's just a very basic misconception on a lot of things. But other than that, I don't know anyone personally, because I think everyone, like I do know a lot of Trump voters, even my family and friends back east. But I don't really know anyone personally who's really like undecided, is like, oh, I don't know who to vote for, because they have reasons or whatever.
Yeah. Your dad sounds like a Joe Jorgensen voter in waiting. I think that he just needs to read the literature. That's which
right.
There's those polls out there where there's states where he's got like 1%, and you're like, oh, that could be enough.
I think in Alaska, actually, he's got quite a few in Alaska. So in Alaska, the races have been tightening there. So yeah.
And maybe it's just because I didn't know the name, but I feel like I didn't hear that name until I got my ballot in the mail. And then once you've read it, you start to hear it more, and you go like, oh, I guess, because those are the people who are just like, I got to vote for somebody. And I don't know why people are so afraid to vote for Kanye. Like, what have you seen from Kanye that would make you think he wouldn't be worth voting for?
Well, obviously you voted for him.
Can you name one thing, So, well, let's talk about specifically the just a lot of people who I follow on Twitter in particular are conservative, and a number of them are public figures, friends of shows that I've worked on, and they felt like the debate was that the town hall was actually a debate between Savannah Guthrie and Donald Trump. And I think if you get out debated by Savannah Guthrie, maybe you shouldn't get reelected. I don't know. And again, I'm not trying to demean her so much, but it's like you didn't get cornered by you didn't get cornered by Walter Cronkite or somebody.
Well, she did her job when the Chris Wallace didn't. So I think that shows the more skilled moderator.
Well, she is a lawyer. I mean, she has that background.
Yeah.
So she is kind of a good fit for that, because she's got that sweet, happy-go-lucky personality, that morning show personality that people love to wake up to. But yet she is a lawyer. She understands. She is a journalist. She understands facts, and so she was kind of holding him to fire there a bit, which she should have. So in a way, it's almost was a better way than having a traditional moderator in that sense, where it's like she's got that kind of breezy, fun morning personality, but then she's really got something to back it up that she gives a little bite, which in a way I think was helpful in a situation like this, to be able to call him out on some of those things that worked better, in my opinion, than having someone else that you might think is the more traditional, someone like a Chuck Todd or something. I think this worked much better in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And honestly, this is just personal preference. I find Chuck Todd so unlikable and so hard to watch that when I heard it was going to be anybody else, Lester Holt would have been fantastic.
Right.
Hoda would have been fine. Kathy Lee, that would have been really fun, but I think she retired. But just imagine they're sitting out in Miami having wine, sitting on the patio. Like, I probably would have written in Kathy Lee if she had done last night's. But I think that the reason why people are angry is that because she did ask tough questions, and honestly, those tough questions weren't so tough. They were things like, when was the last time you tested? Well, they're asking like, when did you test negative? I'm like, yeah, but when was the last time you tested positive for the coronavirus? Like, when did it go away? Like, what day was that? Was it the day that he had the triumphant return back?
Well, that's
to
the same question.
Well, yeah, but it's like, when was the last time you were tested? Did you test on the debate day? Because there's questions about that. And, I think that you get answers like, I really don't know. I get tested all the time. Do you get tested every day? No, but I get tested a lot. Whereas I think a month ago, Kayleigh McEnany said that he gets tested every day. He gets tested multiple times a day. And clearly that's not true.
Right.
So I think that, and people were upset. It's like, oh, he already said that he doesn't, that he condemns white supremacists. But it was like, Yeah, but in the last time that maybe people saw you talk, you didn't. So let me just ask you again. And, he's like, it was good because he was able to stop the conversation. He's like, yes, I condemn white supremacists. Next question, because like, yeah, that's all you needed to say 2 weeks ago.
Right.
Because
Right.
then it doesn't become the issue.
Yeah.
In regarding a Today Show host as the town hall moderator, like they could have went with Jenna Bush, like that, I suppose would have
Al
been
Roker.
Well, a Republican,
Is Gene Shalit still around?
Well, I'm just saying a Republican,
Yeah.
somebody that would be on Trump's side.
Well,
I mean,
see, the thing is,
that family is not on Trump's side.
Yeah, and I think part of the issue
Or
with
more on his side.
Yeah.
Well,
I
think
more predisposed to be on his side. I'd say that. Yeah. What were you
I'd
gonna
say that,
Scott?
but no, I was going to say one, and no disrespect to her. I just don't know if she has that background to ask the sort of questions. But I also agree that if she was to be on it and she asked any kind of tough questions because of the thought that the Bush family is not really supportive of him, then you would have all these Republicans and other people complaining about that too, that she was just there because they don't like Trump,
and you'd also get the impression like, oh, did her dad give her these questions? Like, is this stuff is this gotcha stuff that former President Bush wanted to ask? So I think that
there would have been a conflict too.
To me, as I'm watching it, because I watched it a little bit delayed, as I mentioned, so I wasn't watching it in real time, so I wasn't looking at what people were saying on Twitter until afterwards. It seemed like a mildly uncomfortable grilling that honestly he didn't do terrible on all the questions. A few of them, it was just like, it was like, I don't know anything about QAnon. I don't know anything about QAnon. Why are you asking me about QAnon? What I do know about QAnon is they don't like pedophilia. I was like, all right, so you just said you don't know anything about them, but you clearly know that one thing about them, And there was a really interesting conversation that played out on my Twitter timeline. A reporter who she used to be a columnist for the San Francisco Chronicle. Her name's Deborah Saunders. She covers the White House for the Las Vegas Review Journal, or I think Review Journal is the name of the paper. And she was just like, the only people I ever hear talk about QAnon are reporters. It doesn't seem like a big deal. And then just a lot of other reporters just like, actually, no, it is a big deal. And here's some examples of why. So, but it made me think for a second. I'm like, oh, do I only hear about it because they want to, hammer away as to like how crazy it is? And it made me wonder, like, does President Trump spend much time thinking about QAnon, or it's just like, look, these are people who are going to vote for you, so just don't say anything negative. I mean, I don't know. I mean, do you think that Tamra, do you think that President Trump is up to speed on the Q?
I think he's as up to speed on Q as he is on anything, which is unfortunate. His international diplomacy knowledge is about at the same level of whatever however informed he is on QAnon.
Look, there are areas that he has expertise in. I definitely once heard him say to Howard Stern that you can't be a supermodel if you're an A cup. So there are areas of expertise that he's had in his life. So I think he knows less about Q than he does.
That is probably that's the area I would be most confident that he has expertise in. That's the only area that I would not. That's sort of what you're saying about somebody pointing out that QAnon, you hear much more from the journalists than is it actually that much of a threat. That's how I feel about Biden's gaffes. I feel like the articles and the questioning and the people wondering if he's going to mess up, how did he do? Did he forget somebody's name? I feel like that is the far outweighs, his actual missteps.
Before we talk more about it, I was trying to find this. So let's see. So Joe Biden's town hall on ABC averaged 13.9 million viewers. The town hall that President Trump did was 13.0 million viewers. So it's, almost a million less. However, that's combined NBC, MSNBC, and CNBC. So that's all three of those channels. So that I honestly feel like that surprises me, only because look, which one was I more engaged with and find more entertaining and took more notes on was definitely the Trump town hall. I think if somebody's going to watch one, that's probably the one that they're like, well, which one's going to be a better show? Like,
Unless it's Trump supporters who really are curious what Biden has to say.
Maybe.
Well,
yeah, I mean, that's true.
I'd say almost the opposite, because like we've talked about this before, that even though Joe Biden has been in politics for so long, people really don't know him. And that was part of the thing too. Like I joked about going back during the primaries. It was like him laying low actually really has helped him throughout the primary season and then throughout all this pandemic stuff. While Trump just constantly stirs up the water, he's just stepping back, which is really smart. But a lot of people really don't know him. And everybody knows who Trump is at this point. And we have someone who's running against Trump. And a lot of people at this point want to hear, what is the alternative? And we've talked about this before. Who is this person? Who is Joe Biden? And there is a hope to be able to get voters to vote for him and not just against Trump. So I think a lot of people are tuning in because they were curious on what is Biden going to say, or maybe it was some Trump voters who also want to see if he was going to have a major gaffe and other things like that, because everybody knows, again, what Trump says and does and all that a lot of people don't know about is Biden. So I think there is some interest now that we're only a couple weeks away from Election Day, that people are wanting to tune in and see what he has to say. And so I guess I was surprised by the lower ratings for Trump in general. But I'm also not, in the sense that I think people really are curious about what's going on. And as they're getting ready to vote, they're taking it a little bit more seriously now.
Yeah, no, I think that there's definitely something to be said for that. I think that the questions that she posed him were ones that, he's not doing interviews where, and look, I'm not saying that, if he calls in and talks to Maria Bartiromo on Fox Business for 45 minutes, she doesn't ask any tough questions. But it's not this, where it's just like, yeah, can you talk more about this idea that you put out there that SEAL Team 6 didn't kill Osama bin Laden, they killed a lookalike? And I don't know how well you guys are familiar, I mean, both of you and everybody in the audience are familiar with Rob O'Neill, who has written about it, and he's done a lot of interviews. He's the one who pulled the trigger. This was a fairly, it's safe to say, a fairly Trump-leaning voter. Mm-hmm. And he got in trouble for he got kicked. I think he's banned from United Airlines or some airline because he took a picture without a mask, and he apparently had his mask on for most of it, but he was on the airplane, and I guess he thought it was funny to say that he had his mask off while he was having a snack, and he said something like, "Because I'm not a pussy" or whatever, and then he landed, and the airline banned him. So he's of a very specific mindset, but it's like, mm-hmm. This is a guy now who's like, I can't believe he said this. I mean, this is like, it's like President Trump can argue what he said about, veterans of certain wars being, losers, but you're saying that like, oh, these guys are lying, and it's just like, so you've needlessly stirred up a hornet's nest for a guy who's very vocal, very entertaining. I mean, I've booked interviews with him. He's an interesting guy. He has great insight on that night. And he's always said, like, there's a picture that I wish they made public, but it's pretty brutal. There's the picture that they all took to confirm that that's who they killed. So what do you think that is? Is that just like, hey, there's this underground theory that bin Laden's not dead and that they didn't kill him, so let's speak to those people, whether they are Q or a different letter of the internet, or alphabet too. What do you think? Why do you think that he's gone so far out on this ledge? Is it just because it's like, it's one more ledge, what's the difference?
Yeah, I mean, it's questioning Obama's citizenship. It's all of the baseless things that the hills that he creates to die on for no real reason other than it gets him attention and stirs the pot, and facts don't matter to him about things that are of actual importance. So why should facts matter to him when it comes to some crazy conspiracy?
Yeah, I mean, what do you think, Scott? When I mean, he didn't. He was just like, it was again sort of that like, I've heard. It's almost like it's like a bad Robert De Niro impression. I heard things.
Yeah,
I heard things.
I mean, again, it's just it's absolutely insane just to think of seeing a president of the United States retweeting conspiracy theories and other things. It's just absolute. You just couldn't write this. I mean, it's so on the nose. If you were trying to write and make up a Veep episode, I mean, it's just insane. But again, like to Tamra's point, it's all about getting the attention. It's all about throwing the chum in the water, throwing the spaghetti against the wall, seeing what sticks to get his rabid base fired up, angry, talking about, oh, they're just, and also projecting, and we talk about this often, and I've said this to other people too, it's all about projecting and distracting from all the other issues going on with him by saying, oh, look it over here at this ridiculous thing, and then now everyone's talking about that and the insanity of it, and getting his base riled up rather than the real issues that are going on with that. COVID cases are rising, the economy's not doing as well right now, there are all these layoffs, there are other things that are going on that he's distracting from as well, and just hoping to distract enough and get his base out to help him in some of these key areas again, which he even admitted on that town hall last night that he barely won. So there, and there were a couple points in there I was just going to bring up really quickly about the town hall, which on his side that I thought was ridiculous. One, again, was the healthcare plan. And she kept trying to ask him about that. And he did not, come up with anything and just say, oh, we have to get rid of it all to be able to make this amazing healthcare plan, which she didn't press on, that he kept saying on day one he was going to walk into the Oval Office with a healthcare plan. And now we are 4 years later, and here we are. And then she didn't press him on the fact of the Supreme Court justice by saying, oh, I'm president, it's year 4, so I get to appoint and my nominee, and they should be voted on. Whereas she should have pressed again and like, yes, President Obama was in his 4th year. She said, oh, he had 8 months left, and then he went on about the 4th year, but she didn't really press him on that, or the hypocrisy of that. And then the other thing was too, again, with those freaking tax, the taxes, and him saying again, he's under audit. This has been 4 years. You're not under audit that long. And again, there is no law to say you can't release them. And it's so stupid that we're still having a circular argument of him not releasing his taxes. And the way he described everything, it's a very small amount of my massive net worth of what I owe, and going on about that, and that he doesn't owe. Maybe he owes to foreign people, probably. I mean, it was horrible, and it looked bad on him. And the last thing I'll say is the good thing was, at least he said he was open to a peaceful transfer of power, which he has not really said blatantly before. Yeah. But like Biden, he brought up a comment that we've been waiting to hear from, like, are you open to the peaceful transfer of power if you lose? And he said yes, which was, I also think, important, like Biden's was with the Supreme Court answer as well. So that was good.
I mean, I always thought that the easy answer to that was, well, I'm going to win, but yeah, hypothetically, sure. Yeah. But you know what? It's not going to matter because I'm going to win. Like that answer. It's like, okay, how are you going to pull that apart? It's just like, yeah, of course he needs to feel like he's going to win. When it came to the taxes, I thought it was interesting that the takeaway, and I would have to rewatch it, but the takeaway for me was like, no, it's not. I don't owe $421 million, but it sounds like he owes $400 million. You know what I mean? It was like he said 400 at one point. So I'm like, okay, so that's where the flaw was. They had it rounded up a little too much. All right, let's just call it an even 400. And it's like, yeah, they're probably, and look, I don't think he bungled that answer entirely. He's like, it's like, yeah, I have, a lot of these things are operated as a loss. It's like this weird idea that people loan him money just so that he can lose it. I don't know. I mean, it's I guess bankrolling, somebody who's a high roller in Las Vegas. I think that my favorite thing reading in the reactions to the town hall are how many people called her Samantha Guthrie. I mean, it's like if you just do a Twitter search of Samantha Guthrie instead of Savannah Guthrie, and look, it's an unusual name. It doesn't make you stupid because you did that, but I just think of how many Samantha Guthries I saw out there. It eventually just starts to get funny. But they felt like she asked too many questions up at the top, and I would say that George Stephanopoulos went right to the questions from the voters, and then he interjected some questions that were follow-up. Sometimes they were on different topics. I think she could have gotten all that stuff in, but she did only have an hour. I don't know. What do you think, Tamra? If you were preparing to sit down and ask President Trump questions, I know that they would, you would relish that assignment. But do you think it's good to get to all of it right away so that you can turn over the rest of it to the voters that are there at the town hall? Do you think it's a legitimate complaint is basically what I'm saying, is to like ask all your questions up at the top of the show?
I think that makes sense, because that way, you know, first of all, you probably hooking more viewers that way who are going to say like, oh, you know, that is a topic that I care about, so I'm going to try to see if he answers this. So I think it was a good move. It is a good move to do that. I mean, from what I've read, I think she did an outstanding job, and I feel like any criticism of her ability just stems from, you know, an unfair assumption that, you know, somebody who hosts a morning show wouldn't do as good of a job. But I mean, she moderated the debates. You know, she's done that several times before, so I think um, she was one of the panel of moderators during the Democratic.
Yeah, one of
um,
the candidates debate,
yeah,
one of the primary
and
debates. Yeah.
yeah, so I mean, anytime I've seen her do that, she's always done a good job. So asking the questions up front was probably a way of just being like, here's, you know, the topics that we're going to cover, so stay tuned.
Scott, I'd like you to react to this political speak here. This is somebody tweeted out it's a campaign statement from the Trump campaign. Quote, President Trump soundly defeated NBC's Savannah Guthrie in her role as debate opponent and Joe Biden's surrogate. President Trump masterfully handled Guthrie's attacks and interacted warmly and effectively with the voters in the room.
Wow.
So that's the quote there. I would agree to the second part. Like, obviously, look, he's a businessman. He knows how to interact with people, and yes, show that negative $421 million smile that that you have to leverage. What do you think about that approach, that she actually was there to debate him?
I saw a few things on Twitter last night too, which just kind of cracked me up. It's like, I just don't get if people are really that delusional and caught up in his cult, because some people are saying the same thing on Twitter. I'm like, what? I'm just, as a reasonable person, just watching some of these things, just like going back to the first debate, it was like, oh, he won. And it's just hard to fathom how you can twist things so much. And a couple of people on Twitter, I was like, put down the Kool-Aid, just stop drinking the Kool-Aid and actually watch it, and then you'll be able to see for what it was. And yeah, I don't know how people can twist themselves into these kind of knots to keep talking about how great he was. But again, if you're supporting someone, you're going to overlook everything, and that's, you know, part of politics in that sense. So it's not like you expect anybody that's going to be supporting him that's a huge supporter or anything else, obviously beyond this campaign apparatus, but you're just not going to see people say stuff like that. But it gets to the point where it's just absurd in the way people twist things around on how he won and did all. Like, nobody in a normal way would ever talk like that. So it's yeah, I saw quite a bit of that last night, and it did crack me up for sure.
Well, just a few more things I want to talk about before we wrap it up. One of them is that on paper, next Thursday night at 6 Pacific, 9 Eastern, there will be a debate. We're told that. Tamra, do you think it's happening?
No.
Yeah.
We'll see if there's something. We'll see what the reason is this time. I happened to watch last week the local Los Angeles, the DA debate between Jackie Lacey and George Gascon, and I wish that it had gotten more attention, because even a lot of Los Angeles public figures who are, you know, very vocal about the DA race didn't seem to have watched it. But it was a lesson in how a debate should be run, because they had two moderators. One person was in charge of the time, the other one sort of did some real-time fact checking, and they also the candidates both, when if they were mid-sentence when they said time, they stopped. And it was just so nice to see somebody be like, you know, well actually that figure is not the figure that we have in the books, you know, something like that. So anyway, it's nice to see that, you know, a debate can actually be productive, but unfortunately the presidential ones, not so much.
Scott, do you think it's going to happen?
As of now, I think so. I do think so. I think at this point, if Trump can prove, which Biden did say in his town hall, that he wants proof that that Trump is definitely negative. And if so, I do believe it'll happen because I think Trump is going to desperately want a do-over, especially so close to election day. And Biden's going to just want to have that one more good, solid debate to be able to ride that into those final days of the election as well. So at this point, I do think they will. But who knows? In a whole week, what kind of craziness is going to come up between now and then? It's hard to say. But if I was to just say at this very moment, I would say yes. They both want to have one more to just kind of button up what they need to do.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked for a second if it doesn't happen, but
Right.
I'm leaning more likely that it is going to happen, and then in theory we'll be able to join everyone Thursday night, probably at what would be midnight Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific, and we'll talk about it. But again, no shock value for it not happening for any number of reasons. Either candidate's fault, you know what I mean? Like Biden camp could just be like, it can only hurt at this point. It's not going to help. But we'll see. And that's one of the two final things I want to talk about. One is just the insane polling that you're seeing, where you're seeing national polls and you're seeing the battleground states. And the battleground states, most polls show that Biden is up, even in the battleground states, by a few points. And we talked about this last week. When Rasmussen says something that the president doesn't like, you start to think like, oh, now Zogby's still all in on Trump. And what's the other one? There's that. I'm blanking on it, but there's one that I hadn't heard about. Yeah, but you know the one I'm talking about. What's that?
Do you mean a conservative leaning poll?
Well, it's one that
Trump leading.
It's one that always says that Trump is leading. And look, here's the thing: that there have been outlier polls. When President Obama was running for re-election, most of the polling said that Romney was going to win. But my alma mater, Marist College, which has the Marist Institute of Public Opinion, was one of the ones that said that Obama was going to get reelected. And I was producing a live 3-hour-a-day political radio show at that point. So it being the Marist poll, I was on the receiving end of a lot of ridicule. And then after the election, no one said anything about it. So
what did they say in 2016?
What did Marist say in 2016? I think they were wrong, like almost everybody. Even now, like, it's funny because I like Nate Silver from 538 was like posting some of the headlines leading up to election day that they still predicted that Hillary was going to win, but it's like, look, these were headlines that said it wasn't impossible that Trump could have won. There was a bunch of that sort of stuff in there, where they're like, look, we were kind of leaning that way. So we see all this polling, and as we reference a lot, Dr. Larry Sabato from the University of Virginia Center for Politics always says that polls are not votes. At a certain point, they're going to reflect them one way or the other. But when you hear all of this, and there was a senior Biden campaign official who said that they feel like the numbers are a lot closer than they look, and they don't want anybody to get complacent. I think it's more that second thing than anything. It's just like, don't see that and think you don't have to vote. But when you see it, Tamra, and you've long said on this show that you feel like President Trump is going to win. I was saying that for a while. It does seem that it's not as much of a guarantee as I would have thought. The pandemic coming into play really changed everything about it, because I think the level of popularity that he had, it would be very easy to have won people over. But what do you think when you hear some of these crazy numbers where like Biden's up by like 16 points or more nationally? That's not, an individual state.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, I've been saying all in Trump is going to win, but I am for the last couple of months, I have been wondering like, wow, maybe he's not. I mean, I can't say that I'm confident Biden's going to win by any means, but I am at least not going all in that Trump is going to win now. And I just remembered that in reading, I didn't Biden at his town hall talk about premiums and saying that like they're not going to, no one's going to pay more than 8% premiums than, regardless of your income, unless you're
I don't
low.
remember him saying that exact number, but I know
I
that
don't
they
remember
talked
that.
about it. Yeah.
Right. I don't remember that exact number either.
Maybe
but,
it wasn't
yeah.
in the town hall, but I saw that quoted somewhere, that he said no one is going to pay more than 8% of your income for premiums. And it made me think, Christian, of the guest that we had after the first debate, because he specifically said he's supporting Trump because of his high premiums.
That was after the first debate. Yeah, we had my friend Jason Blair. It went from Austin. Yeah, I mean, I think that I mean, he as we mentioned in that show, he's the father of triplets. So obviously, healthcare is a fairly sizable consideration for his household, I would imagine. Yeah.
So if I'm right, let me look if it was in the town hall or something else. But anyway, if Biden can continue to address things like that maybe are more boring topics than the Supreme Court, or maybe they're more boring and not as headline worthy, but those are the ones that might actually make a difference.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, let us know what you find with that, Scott. When you hear the poll numbers, and we keep talking about the polls, just some of the margins are just, I don't know. They seem crazy to me. And there's a lot of, the conservative argument is that it's so high. Why doesn't it feel like it's true? Like, and it's almost like, well, yeah, I guess if you're actually diehard conservative, you're a hardcore Trump supporter, then you're probably going to know a lot of people who feel the way you do. And it's the same reason why people be like, oh, I can't imagine why anybody vote for Trump. So what do you think about the disparity there?
Again, that's going to be typical, like you just said. If you're a diehard Trump supporter, a diehard Biden or Democratic supporter, you're going to be kind of in your own little bubble and think one way or the other. But look, even if the pandemic did not happen, it was going to be a tight race to begin with. Yes, Trump was going to have the upper hand just if the economy kept chugging along, and also an incumbent always just has that built-in advantage. Like we see now with Trump, he's throwing in red meat to everybody. Let's throw some money to the seniors. Let's throw money to the farmers. All these type of things. The incumbency, being able to jet around an Air Force One, it really does lend itself to always sort of giving that built-in advantage. And that's what we don't see, especially in modern times. We saw a lot more in the past, but in modern times we don't see incumbent presidents losing a lot. It's been 28 years since the last time an incumbent president lost. So it just does not happen as often anymore because you do get that built-in advantage. But I do believe it was always going to be close. The difference with the polls this time compared to 2016, though, which gives me a little more confidence that there will be a Biden win if things hold steady. Of course, we saw what happened in 2016 when James Comey brought out reopening the Hillary Clinton case 11 days before Election Day, and that really kind of brought down some of her numbers and enthusiasm at the end. But if you're not seeing that, the difference is Joe Biden has been steadily above 50%, which Hillary Clinton never got to, and he's held that steady lead throughout the summer into the fall. It's been very stable. That's one difference. The other difference is the pollsters are really looking on making sure they don't make those similar mistakes in 2016 where they weren't looking at some of the rural voters in the same way that they are now and weighing them in the same way. So they've tried to correct those errors as well. And so they don't want to mess it up again. Yes, could he have that come from behind win again? It was just such a unique situation for him to win that in 2016 that it's hard to see something like that similar happening. But yes, I think Biden's people are correct. Races do tend to tighten up as you get closer to Election Day. And so things can happen. And so nobody should be sitting back thinking that this is going to happen. And an interesting thing was, if you look at like Florida, North Carolina, the GOP ground game was so much better than the Democratic ground game. They went out during the pandemic and really knocked on doors and got people to register and switch some of those voters that were long-term Southern Democrats over to the Republican side. So you look at the numbers now, and it's kind of eye-popping how many more Republicans were registered in Florida as opposed to Democrats this time around compared to 2016. And you look at 2016, you see that there was like 3 times as many Democratic voters were included in 2016, and Trump still won by 1%. So it's interesting. It doesn't really mean anything, and it still doesn't mean that Florida's not going to go blue this time around. But it is. You do see some dichotomy in there with these polls, but you see some great numbers for Republicans and registering new voters in Florida and North Carolina in particular, in states that are going to be very, very close. So yeah, the polls are definitely, I think, a little bit more accurate, and I do believe that Biden really does have a substantial lead. But again, polls don't equal votes, and people will have to get out and vote, and it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next couple of weeks if anything kind of shifts that momentum.
My go-to source for accuracy on polling is on TikTok. There is a trend right now where people who live in red areas will drive and showing all of the Biden signs saying these 4 years ago were Trump signs. So I think that is the definitive evidence.
Well, I mean, it's funny that it's from TikTok for sure, but it's also like legitimate anecdotal evidence that was seen in 2016, specifically in Pennsylvania. You had people that were like, I don't see Hillary signs anywhere. And they saw a lot of Trump signs. So there's definitely something to be said for it. The idea of the race tightening is interesting because, as we keep hearing, we've had, I think, just under 20 million people vote already. And that's a crazy astronomical number. I as much as I love voting in person, I did earlier this week. I did actually do my mail-in ballot and just dropped it off in what was a real voter drop-off box, which is a problem in California that you have the pretend ones.
Especially around the places where you hang out, Christian churches, gun shops, and other.
It's funny.
I forget what the third one was. That was like ridiculous. It was like caricature of Republican.
The one of 3 gun shops in Burbank. There's always this guy out there that's taking signatures for repeal Gavin Newsom, or recall Gavin Newsom, excuse me. And he's always, every day as I drive by, as I get in line to buy my new gun, because I can never have enough. But I mean, there's so many people that are voting. And you can take it whatever way you want to. But I feel like when you see the lines in places like Georgia and North Carolina, and that you hear about the people waiting like 8 hours in line, I don't know, maybe I'm writing my own narrative in my head. You tell me what you think, Tamra.
Yeah, a friend of mine.
Go ahead.
A friend of mine in Nashville just yesterday went to vote, and she posted this video of the line, and it was absolutely insane. It looked like she was going to be, I have to check back with her and see like how long they actually did end up waiting, but it was, I haven't never seen anything like it before.
But you heard people that were talking about like 6 to 8 hours, and this is in places like Georgia and North Carolina where it's still very hot, and they're waiting that long. And I don't know, Tamra, tell me if I'm trying to steer this narrative in my head. I feel like you don't do that when you're really happy about the way things are. I think most people, after they say go to a restaurant, they don't say like, oh, can I speak to the manager? I want to tell them what a great time that I had. You only speak to the manager when it's like, my bread was cold and they didn't give me my refill on my Diet Dr. Pepper. Also, they didn't apply my coupon, So it's like usually people are talking to the management when they have a complaint. And look, do I think that that's 20 million votes for Joe Biden? No, I don't. But do I think that more of them are people who are not happy? Yes, I do think that. And I mean, logically it makes sense. Do you feel like that's likely, Tamra?
Absolutely. That's a great analogy. But especially, I mean, imagine how unhappy you have to be if you need to wait 8 hours until you get to talk to the manager.
And, exactly. And by the way, you have 3 more weeks to do it. You could go next week and be like, oh, the line's only 2 hours. It's like, no, I gotta get this off my chest. And the drop-off box that I went to, it was I forget what day we went. We went like Wednesday afternoon, and there were 2 people ahead of us, and then while we were there, a couple other people showed up. It was like, why is everybody's voting in Burbank today? It just it was weird to think about. And I mean, I do understand that a lot of those polling places that you're seeing, those are in-person voters. They're just like, I don't trust the mail to deliver my ballot.
Or the signature is going to be off or anything else. But I would say my biggest tell, besides the lines, which just says something right now, is that Trump is campaigning in Macon, Georgia. So to me, if you have to campaign in Georgia as a Republican, you're not winning. To me, that's the biggest tell right there. It's like, where are they sending the candidates to? And Georgia has not gone to a Democratic presidential candidate since Bill Clinton in 1992. So again, we're talking 28 years. So he's not winning if he has to go to Georgia to campaign. That's all I'll say to that. That's the biggest tell. Yes, I agree with you. The lines are definitely, like you said, if you're going to wait in line for 8 hours, is because you were upset and you're going to make sure you get your vote in. But when you have a Republican campaigning in what should be a very Republican state less than 3 weeks before the election, that also is a very big tell as well.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, you also look, it's good news for anyone really, that it's like you don't have to worry. It's good news for Biden because you don't have to worry about where public opinion goes. Like, well, your vote's already been cast, you know. And I've made this comparison before. The way that President Trump is setting up the election is actually Charles Foster Kane and Citizen Kane. He's running for governor of New York State, and he owns a bunch of newspapers. There are two versions of the paper that day. One, victory for Charles Foster Kane, and then the alternate is fraud at the polls. There's no like possibility that his opponent won. It's like either I won or they cheated. And the degree to which that's being sown is a little bit it's concerning, but you almost feel like it's all they can have. And I know we've gone very long. There's just two other things. One is that President Trump is doing all of these rallies, and when you listen to what he's saying at them, it's reminiscent of like the ex-boyfriend or ex-girlfriend who just is like, no, I really don't think we should break up. Remember? Like all the fun things. He literally said, suburban women, can you please like me? And it's just like, ugh, no. Don't
and that's exactly,
that.
and it's things like that is exactly the reason that they've turned against you. So
yeah,
it just shows
like,
that he's his own worst enemy.
He's like, I saved your neighborhoods. It's like, I don't even care if that's right. Yuck. Don't ask you. Like, you know, and it's just like literally, and look, there's something to be said for trying, you know, basically trying anything to see what sticks to the wall. But it's like, it's so many of these things. And, you know, you referenced the October surprise, and there was the intended October surprise, which is these emails from Hunter Biden. And I think that there has become so much more around this because Facebook, but specifically Twitter, wasn't letting people share the link, and they were locking accounts that did. So that sort of adds credence to it. But when you actually look at the story, which has changed several times, your source is Rudy Giuliani, and this is 2020 Rudy Giuliani, not America's Mayor 2001 Rudy Giuliani. That Rudy Giuliani, you could probably be like, well, if Rudy Giuliani says it, I'm probably going to believe it. You have the guy who owns a laptop repair shop whose story has changed, and you see him and you're like, wait, this guy? This is the guy who like, hey, you know, that laptop sat around here for a while. I should call the FBI. What?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's I think not letting people share the story sort of validated it, you know, in a lot of people's minds. I think if you could have done the little pop-up like, hey, you know, there's some questions about this. Are you sure you want to tweet this? Which they do for a lot of things, but they still had let you share it. I don't think it becomes as big a deal. But you're finding that other sources aren't really running with this story. You know, it gets mentioned occasionally, and I'm not talking about on talk radio. Like you know, nobody's really doing anything with this. I don't think people care. If you've made up your mind about Biden, it's just like you made up your mind about Trump. You don't care about grabbing him by the pussy. You know, like that was supposed to be like, oh my God, we got him. No, they didn't care. And it's just like, okay, if Hunter Biden is the candidate and you get some of these pictures and things, it's like, okay, there's some damage from that. But I don't know. I don't see it. And maybe it's just because, and look, I think it's like people want these things to be there's a degree to which you want it to be true. You want it to be right. So you want that story to be right. You want that, you know, the idea that there was this piss video of Donald Trump out there that everybody believed 4 years ago and they were waiting for, you know, everybody wanted to believe that was true, that there was this Russian
You
piss
just called it that.
That's what it is. I mean,
know,
allegedly.
but there's like more G-rated ways of saying it.
No,
you just went
it's
for
a VHS tape, and written on the label is Trump piss video. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you're right. It's the PPT. Thank you, Scott. You helped me clean it up for our younger demographics.
That's right.
And I think people just want stuff like this to be true. And look, could it be true? Absolutely. He could have absolutely met somebody because they gave his son money. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying, like, well, what's the source? Okay, where's the other source? You know, so I don't know. And I think that, George Stephanopoulos didn't bring it up last night, but I feel like it could have easily been a 1-minute exchange. Like, so what do you think about this? He could say no comment. He could just say, like, it's just not true. Look at the source. Like, I hate to demean this guy who is a Delaware resident and formerly one of my constituents, but this guy who allegedly turned in the laptop seems less than credible. But what do you think, Tamra, about the way that people are kind of clutching at this story and hoping that it was the smoking gun? It has been referred to as smoking gun emails. I believe Tucker Carlson said he had more smoking gun emails last night. I believe that's what he tweeted out. So is it just something that's like, okay, people who already were going to vote for Trump are just now like even more self-righteous about it?
Well, real quick, just going back to the premiums thing, it is in Biden's plan that he states that no more than 8.5% of your income, no matter what your income is, you don't pay more than 8.5% for your premiums.
What if I want to pay 9%?
Sorry, man.
Well, I'm voting Joe Jorgensen then.
But I don't think he mentioned it at the town hall, so I'm not exactly sure where I saw that.
Okay.
But it is. I think it's, granted I'm biased because I support Biden, but it seems like if this is the smoking gun, like his smoking guns are so much more mild than Trump's.
Yeah, they're those Bugs Bunny guns where they pull the trigger and the little flag comes out that says bang.
I mean, to me, it just seems very telling that it's like, if that's the best we can do, then I think that we know who's the better candidate. But I don't know, again, obviously I'm on Biden's side, so I don't know how somebody else would feel about that. But it just seems the craziest thing that you can pin somebody to just seems like so much more mild in Biden's case.
Yeah, Scott, let me know what you think, but also I wonder if there's value in sort of talking about, if you can sort of diffuse the story by like talking about like, I love my son Hunter. He's obviously had some problems, he's clean now, but sure. Yeah, he's definitely, and I don't know how reliable the photo is because somebody made the comment that like, if you smoke crack, the last thing you do is fall asleep afterwards. It's the reverse impact of what it is. So people were questioning the legitimacy of these photos because it's like, I've never fallen asleep with a crack pipe in my mouth, but what do I know? Do you think that there's a way to address this where you sort of humanize it as like, have you ever had struggles in your own family? I mean, do you think that there's a way to address it where you don't give it legitimacy, but it's like, yeah, obviously there have been problems, but I'm so proud of my son Hunter now, something like that.
I do, but I look, on one hand, it just reeks of utter desperation, especially when you said it comes from Giuliani and they've been talking about all these things, and Ron Johnson, was doing this whole thing that they were gonna get him, and of course there was nothing to be had. And now they're trying to go after his children. So besides the reeking of desperation, which it clearly is because they have nothing, and again, look at your sources and look at Giuliani as your source, he's also not the candidate. And I think it's just also such hypocrisy when you see Trump's children that are enriching themselves off of him and their family business. And it's just sort of laughable. It's like, really? And then you see Donald Trump Jr. just constantly talking about that. And I find it really just trashy and disgusting, especially I think Donald Trump Jr. even brought up about Hunter's drug issues. And yeah, I do think there's a way, and Biden did bring it up at one point in the first debate, when Trump did a horrible job, going on about Hunter when he was talking about Beau. And he did bring it up and say, hey, this is a situation that a lot of families have struggled with, and we are proud of him. He's worked through it, and it is something. And mental health, and to me, I think the most important thing would be for Joe Biden to bring up mental health as a way of correlating to that. If he was to bring it up and say mental health is so important, and that's why we want to continue to make sure that everyone is covered by healthcare. It's not just even your physical health, but mental health is just as important, and it affects and touches everybody's lives. And that's a way of humanizing it and also connecting to everybody, and expressing why having healthcare coverage for everybody that's affordable and for every single person is so vital and important for the overall health of this country. So there are ways to do it, but I think he has to be careful, because the more that he brings it up, the more he's legitimizing this absolutely stupid and insane thing that they're trying to do because they're desperate at this point and they have nothing else. And it's kind of sad the way they're doing that right now. But he has to be careful about it. But I think, yes, he could bring it up in a way, and especially correlate it to mental health, which is a vitally important thing that still is overlooked a lot in this country.
Yeah, I mean, when the story broke, I kind of expected it to become a big deal. And the fact that it doesn't, if you want to make the argument, it's because the media doesn't want the story to proliferate. I think you have enough media outlets who would love to run with a story like this. Don't even need to name which ones, but there are some that would really like to do deep background on this and get some more stuff and be the one to break it, So, and there was a headline that kind of said it all, that, Trump was warned that Giuliani was likely to give him bad information from his Russian contacts, or, from which he's been tied to. So also, I believe Giuliani's daughter went out there and very publicly told everyone to make sure they vote for Biden. So, yeah. There's a few
just like Conway. Like
yeah,
the
I was
kids
just trying to remember what little Conway's name was. That was
Caitlin?
Claudia.
Yeah, there's a few Claudia Conways out there. Anyway, we definitely went long. I should have done the Ted Koppel and let our affiliates know that we were going to go a little long tonight, but we appreciate everybody joining us. Thank you to both Tamra and Scott for being so generous with their time. Tamra, if people want to see you TikToking, showing off all the lawn signs in your neighborhood, where do they find you?
Yep. Hey Tamra. I changed my handle to Hey Tamra, and I think that is the reason that my followers are they're stunted right now. But anyway, Hey Tamra on TikTok.
All right. Yeah. It's I wish you could just migrate the old followers over, because I want.
No, I still have the old followers. It's just not growing as fast as it was.
Well, you mentioned it here, so I'm sure it's going to double right now. And Scott, where can people find you?
You can find me, talking to my best friend Mitch McConnell on Twitter at SMan80. That's SMN80.
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at ChristianDMZ. If you want to see my photo of voting earlier this week, you can probably see other things, but that's the thing that happened most recently. As of right now, our plan would be, vote Yeezy and vote often is my advice to everyone. But it's just a joke. You shouldn't vote often, just every year, just once. But if you want to vote for Yeezy, good for you. I don't care at this point. I'm not going to tell anybody how they should vote. But our plan, as I said earlier, will be with you next Thursday at 9 p.m. Pacific. Yes, I know that's midnight Eastern. After what we expect to be a debate, except for Tamra, who probably will be right. But we'll be with you soon. Just follow us on social media, and we'll let you know. Thanks again, everybody, and we will talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.